Take your Bibles, please, and turn to 2 Kings chapter 18. 2 Kings chapter 18. We're towards the end of our study on the kings of Israel and Judah. We began earlier this year, or this school year, and we came to a point where the kingdom was divided up, and then we went with the northern kingdom all the way to the end, and now we're going to deal with a few of the kings in the southern kingdom before this series ends, Lord willing, 3 weeks from tonight. And then when we get back from Israel, Lord willing, our summer series, we're taking a road trip. It's summertime. We thought it'd be nice to take a road trip. So we're on vacation this summer, so we're going to take a road trip on Paul's 3 missionary journeys. And that'll be our study in the summertime on Wednesday night through June. Since it's a tourist area, I thought it might be one way to look at it. But a field trip, or a road trip on the 3 missionary journeys. Looking forward to that this summer. We have actually three different series happening this summer. We'll say more about that later, but that's for the Wednesday night. Tonight, waiting upon God. Do you like to wait? How many enjoy just waiting in line? How many of you cannot wait in line without grabbing your cell phones? My wife is one. My wife can wait in line for an hour or more and never touch her cell phone. Okay? Her husband's much like that. Too much sarcasm right there. That's right. That's what I was going to say. I can be a whole hour and not touch their cell phone. Now, my cell phone, not so much, okay? And don't you see it? Somebody has to wait in line. First thing they do is they grab their mind-altering device or mind-controlling device, the cell phone, and get into it, okay? We just tend not to like to wait. Now, especially when we don't know what's going to happen. Or we don't like what's happening, right? My brother, we should be praying for him. I mentioned him not. My brother has a test tomorrow in California, and we hope it's all okay. But you don't know until they do that's why they do the test. And so it's like, okay, well, when you don't get the results back, it's back, and it's 3-hour difference in time, and those. But we have to wait. Now, unfortunately, we don't do a really good job with it usually, or we struggle with it. And so what we're going to do tonight is maybe tonight and next week, maybe take 2 weeks on this one because we may not finish tonight. The forecast is cloudy on that one, but we'll just see how it goes, okay? So I want to give you a working definition of waiting upon God, okay? Just might want to write this down if you're interested. It should be in the back of your bulletin. And so a working definition. Remember, a working definition, I'm just saying this is one way to say it. It's not the ultimate definition. It's not a Webster's definition. It's just a working definition. Waiting on God is the patient endurance to do what is right and possible until God makes additional provision or gives additional instruction. I want you to think about that for a moment. I want that to sink in. When I wait upon God, I am patiently enduring whatever I'm going through, okay? Patiently endure to do what is right. Now, I'm not waiting upon God if I'm not doing the right thing, okay? You ever heard the expression, well, I've got to do something? Now, that's not true. All you have to do is what's right. If you ever make a decision based on the fact I've got to do something, I can tell you that 9 times out of 8, you're going to make the wrong choice. Because because your motive is completely wrong. Okay? If I feel like I'm forced into I got to do something, I got to make some decision. Well, no, you don't. You can let God make the decision, can't you? I mean, you could. That's just the thing. Okay, but watch this. To do what's right and possible. Okay, now that's an important part because the Bible says in Philippians chapter 2 in verse 13 that God works in us both to will and to do of His good pleasure. Now what does that mean? That means God makes it possible, okay, to do what the right thing is to do. Now, we all know that we could really bad time need a bigger nursery. We do. We need a nursery like with a hot tub and no, not really, not a hot tub, but we needed at least with ESPN for the guys that help the nursery occasionally. But we need a bigger nursery. We could really use another classroom on the ground level. We really could, and we've tried it, and it hasn't worked yet. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to wait patiently and just do the right thing until God shows us how to proceed with the need for more space. We're not going to be anxious about it. You realize we didn't buy this piece of property and build this building because we were unhappy in the storefront. Not at all. We were fine, okay? And we didn't go to the storefront because we weren't happy at the school. And we didn't go to the school because we weren't happy at the community center. We just, each time, just did what God told us to do. And when God opened the door, we just walked through the next door. Okay? Now watch as you patiently endure to do the right thing and what's possible. So I accept if it's not possible, I can't do it. Okay? Until God makes additional provision. So God makes something else possible, but He brings into my life, or He gives some additional instruction. Okay? God will show us what we're supposed to do. When we were at the school many years ago, now, we met in 2 locations. We had keys, a very kind school. They were very kind to us at Katy Hawk Elementary School. But we had a key to the building. And so we could come in and set up on Sunday morning and have church, and church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night there in the cafeteria of the school. But occasionally I'd get a note or a call from the principal and say, well, this weekend we need you to meet in the gymnasium. And we said, that's fine. And so I would tell the church family on Wednesday night that God has told us that His plan for us is to meet in the gym this Sunday. That's God's plan. And they said, okay, that's God's plan that we meet in the gym. How do we know that? Because that's how God had provided. I do want to encourage you that the will of God is, for the most part, not in everything. Sometimes it's very hard to know God's will. I understand that. There are times, what do I do? What's the right thing to do? I understand this, okay? But the vast majority of God's will for our life is quite simple if we will wait until He shows us what we should do and what He gives us. And then when He does, we make the next step, okay? A summary of that statement right there could be wrapped up in the phrase that you're very familiar with, we talk about quite often from time to time, and that is simply do the next right thing. Whatever the next right thing is, just do that and leave the consequences to God. Now, with that said, we are in 2 Kings 18 and 19. The text is technically chapter 18, verse 13, all the way to the end of chapter 19, okay? Now, we spoke about Hezekiah a couple of weeks ago, a week before the missions conference, talking about how Hezekiah was the king of Judah, and he was bold. And he was bold. He came in and he cleaned house at the beginning of his ministry. He took down the high places, got rid of the moral perversion to a large degree, and he really did a lot of good stuff. They didn't do everything right, but he was really good. He was really an awesome king, one of the good kings of the southern kingdom, that he was bold. But his boldness led him to make some decisions that at times were at least questionable. And one thing they'll tell me here is actually was a very wrong decision, okay? Now, you're familiar with the events going on in Ukraine right now. And so if you watch any news at all, it's been said, at least on some news channels and some news sources, this would be a wonderful time, not wonderful, but an opportune time for a nation like China to do what? Do you know? Take Taiwan, okay? Now, I'm not, of course, they're not listening to me, so I'm not really worried that I'm not giving out state secrets here, okay? Okay, and I don't know that that's true, but I've heard it talked about, okay? So, and the reason why they say that is because the U.S. is tied up with Europe, with NATO, and it's tied up right now with who? Okay. NATO, U.S., Europe, what's happening right now? Ukraine, yeah, I'm sorry, you said it. Okay, thank you. Okay, Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, right, Ukraine. So they're tied up with that, okay? So what was happening here, okay, that Hezekiah's father had gotten into this place where he was paying protection money. That's the Italian in me. He was doing protection money, okay, to the king of Assyria, and basically saying, "I'll give you this money," and so forth, and then every year I'll give you this much money. You leave me alone, okay? So my shop won't get wrecked because I give you this money. And the king of Assyria said, "Fine," okay? Now that's not quite, that's a word picture. You understand that, don't you? They didn't actually have a shop, and there wasn't really the family up there, okay? All right, but that was the agreement, okay? And so then what happened was the kingdom had some problems, okay? Syrian kingdom had some problems, internal problems, external problems, and then Hezekiah thought, it's a good time to stop paying my protection money. Okay? And so he stopped paying the protection money. Okay? And what he did, he cut a deal with Egypt at a lower fare to be a partner and other people to be like their colleagues or have an agreement there amongst themselves. Okay? And a treaty kind of thing of protection. But what happened was Assyria got their act together, and they come down and they take away the northern kingdom. Okay? And then the books I read had two time periods, either 2 to 4 years later, okay, after that king that took the northern kingdom away comes back with a vengeance, okay? And here's a little map, I believe, it comes up on the screen, okay, of what he did. He comes down from the north there, comes down and just cleans house all the way down here, and then makes a loop up to Jerusalem. Now, why do you think he didn't just come straight this way? Do what? Not desert. No. What was the strategic purpose for coming down south and then coming up? What is he now blocking off from Jerusalem? Right, the support, his treaties or whatever, his support from the south. So by coming down like this and hooking up, he blocks off his help. Okay, basically like chopping off your supply lines in wartime. So he blocks off the human source of protection. Okay, and so he comes on the scene. All right. Now, what happens is he comes the first time, and we're not going to read these whole 2 chapters word for word, line by line, but I'm going to, in verses 13 through 16, that's the point for right now. Let me give you the point, okay? And I want to talk to you about the absence of waiting, okay? All right. What happens when you don't wait upon, if you don't wait upon God, what do you do, okay? I want to give you 2 things to write down, and we'll talk about it from the passage. Okay? First of all, you wind up with self-centeredness, okay? When you don't wait upon God, then you become the center of your thinking. One of the toys I have in my office that I use in my counseling ministry is, and I brought out today, I was talking to a couple, and I brought out a set of scales. You know, that you stand, they were afraid of making them weigh in, but an older kind of, the kind we have is the digital kind where you can't cheat on because it says the number and then it yells, "Look how much you weigh!" It doesn't really say that, but the number comes up and you can't hide from it, okay? But this one is the older fashioned one that you can adjust. There's an adjustment piece on it. So what you can do is you can make yourself weigh anything. All you got to do is go down the negative column before about 60 pounds before you get on it, and you done lost a ton of weight, and you're like a skinny right here. Boom! I mean, you're like mean, lean walking machine. Now, really as fat as ever, but the fact is, you adjusted the scale that makes the number look one way, but what happens when you look in the mirror? Ain't nothing changed. Okay? But at least you feel better while you look at the scale. Okay? Now, I say that to say this. When people don't wait upon God, they begin now to take things in their own hands and start creating a way of thinking that makes them feel good about their choices. Oh, this is a great choice. I got to do this. Now listen, I'm just saying, you just got to be careful. Now, listen, sometimes God will lead us to make let me make this very clear. Sometimes God will lead us to make very difficult decisions. That's true. And very challenging decisions. But we have to make sure that we're waiting upon God and we're not self-centered in our thinking. Second, that we're not self-reliant. Okay? I can make this work. I can make this work. Now, look at verses 13 through 16, okay? And we're just going to just read through part of this. Okay, verse 13. Now, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, now he's the king of what kingdom? Hezekiah is the king of what kingdom? Judah, not Israel, because Israel in verses 9 through 12 were taken off into captivity, okay? They are Judah, the southern kingdom, okay? Did Sennacherib, okay, king of Assyria, come up against all the fenced cities of Judah and took them. Okay, that was that track coming down the coast that we showed earlier, okay? He's just making, hey, he's just coming right on down, okay? And he's making tremendous progress. Now, historians tell me, in my studies of this passage, the commentaries I was reading, says that Sennacherib, this particular military campaign is his third campaign. When he first took over from his dad, back home, he dealt with the different areas of problems and got those set. And now he wanted to come back. Now Jerusalem has stopped sending the money. You have to remember the kingdom back in those days, the kingdom in Bible times was never determined by a line on a map. What determined the kingdom size in the Bible times? Influence and authority, exactly. If you didn't listen to me, I wasn't your king. I could say, well, I'm the king of that mountain over there. But those people that live in the mountain there, they don't recognize you. They don't send you, but they don't send you any money. They don't send you money. You ain't got nothing. Okay? So you're not king of anything. You're king of your imagination. Okay? And so the money stopped flowing. Remember, he's not back in Assyria checking his computer printout every month and seeing if, okay, did Judah put in the $10,000? Let me see. I see the chart. 10,000 in January, February, March, April. Oh, no, wait a minute. There's nothing in May. Nothing in April. Okay, wait a minute. Wait. Okay, what's going on here? It wasn't like that because it took time for payment to pass back and forth, for information to flow. So there's a lag time here, okay, all right, of what's happening. Okay, so that's the setup here. Now watch this. Came up against all the fenced cities. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, prayed and asked God what he should do. Is that what your Bible says? Good. Then you might have the right Bible, right? Okay, that's okay. He sent to the king of Assyria, okay, Lachish, saying, I have offended, return from me, that which thou hast puttest on me will I bear. So what he's saying is, let me have my city back, and I'll give you last April, May, and June's payment and pick up on what I owe you, okay? That's what he's saying, okay? Give me back the cities, and I'll give you the money you want me to give you. And the king of Assyria appointed unto Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold, which is quite a bit of money, okay? And Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord. Now watch this. His inability to wait upon God, his unwillingness to first turn to God before he relied upon himself, made his own decision, he's wind up now, he's undoing what he did in the first part of his kingdom. Because in the first part of the kingdom, he poured money into the house of God, in the worship of God, and built it up, and now he's got to take it all apart. Okay? Why? Because he hadn't consulted God at all. He just figured that's what he has to do. Why? Because I got to do something. I got to do what I can do. Let me tell you, you don't have to do what you can do. You can be available for God to do what he wants to do. Right? And so here's what happens. He does that, okay? And verse 15, Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and the treasure of the king, because his father basically bankrupted the country, and so he didn't have a lot of money to work with. At that time did Hezekiah cut off the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord and from the pillars which Hezekiah, king of Judah, had overlaid. See, it was his own work, and he gave it to the king of Assyria. He just undid everything he had just done. How many times do we as believers undo what we've done for him, the progress, because we hit a patch in our life or an area of our life where we are going now solo. And that can happen. And so we have to be careful that we seek God's leadership, the absence of waiting. And I call verses 13 and 16 the absence of waiting because you see an absence, a void of him seeking God's will. Okay? Now, is it true that some people who seek God's will wind up broke? And the answer is yes. Is it true that people who sometimes seek God's will wind up discouraged, despondent, okay, or ill physically? Yes. Do we have things in our lives that don't work out the way we wish they would? That's true. And that's the more important thing, that we have to make sure that we're doing what God wants us to do. Remember this, we all play to an audience of one. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 9. Okay? Now, the second is, let's just talk about this. Maybe we'll get a bit into this tonight, and we'll just see how it goes. You're not in a hurry. We're going to start at 8 o'clock, regardless of where we are, okay? So we have to because of all the youth ministries. Plus, many of us have to get early tomorrow morning. Okay. Number 2, the enemy of waiting. Now, what happens here in verse 17 is interesting, okay? Because what happens is that once Hezekiah folded so quickly, like a cheap tent out in the windstorm, okay? He just folds so quickly. What happens in verse 17 is the king of Assyria gets a second idea. Well, if you so quickly, it's like if you're selling a house in today's market, you have a house on the market, okay? And your price is, let's say, it's extravagant. It's $500 for your house. Let's keep the money simple, okay? This is a make-believe house, okay? But it's a really nice house, and you're selling for $500, okay? And you get 15 offers in less than 13 seconds for that $500 house. What do you probably know, if you know anything about buying and selling? What have you probably done? Right, so you've left a lot of money on the table, haven't you? You have. Okay, and I'm using 500 because we have a number you would 500,000, whatever you would. So you left money on the table. You're selling the car. You're selling the used car, very nice car, for X price. Somebody comes to your house to buy it, and he gives you off the top of the line exactly what you asked for. What do you probably know? Same thing. You didn't ask enough money, right? You left money on the table. All right. Now, what's happening here is similar. Not with the car and the house exactly, but it's a similar process. Okay. The king is thinking, wait a minute. I asked you, and I'm gonna put numbers that are not, because there's no way to really know, translate this into current currency. A lot of debate about that ability. Let's just say that he asked the king of Judah to give him $1,000 a month. I'll give him $10,000. I want $10,000, and then I'm gonna go back to my country and leave you alone. Okay. And the king said, fine, here's $10,000. The king is thinking now, wait a minute, if you so quick to give me that money, you must have some other stuff hidden there. So you know what? I'm not going to take the $10,000. I'm going to come and take everything. Okay? That's where he gets from. That's what you get when you don't follow the Lord. You wind up, you jump out of the frying pan and into the what? The fire. Okay? Now, look at the enemy here, because what's going to happen, these people are attacking him, and there's three ways in which the attack goes. I'll give you one of them tonight, and we'll see how far we get with this one, and then we have time, we'll give you the second one, okay? And here's the first one, out of appearance. I think we may have time to give you all three of these, okay? Now, in verses 17 down to verse 22, they come with appearance. They are going to come and appear with this tremendous, irresistible force. Verse 17, and the king of Assyria sent Tartan and Ribasheresh and Ribasherkah, okay, from Lucas. Now, these three names, okay, now there's a debate among Bible scholars. Is this like saying, Moe, Larry, and Curly? No pun intended, okay? But are these three names, or are they the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, and the Secretary of Commerce? In other words, a position, okay? And whichever one you want to take is fine, because I read really good commentaries that said one said the other, one said the other. So I don't know which they are. Either 3 names or 3 titles, okay? One of these was supposed to be the last one, or the middle one rather, was by one Bible commentary, said to be the chief of the eunuchs and one of the high officers. The other one was the chief cupbearer, and so forth. But be it as it may, these people of prestige and significance come onto the scene and meet them, okay, with a great host against Israel. So here they have this appearance of this great force, okay? And he comes on, and look at verse 19. It said unto them, speak ye now to Hezekiah. Thus saith, this is the message they had from him. Thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, what confidence is this wherein thou trusteth? Thou sayest, but they are not vain words, I have counsel and strength for war. Now, on whom dost thou trust that thou rebellest against me? Now, what the king of Assyria is doing, he's saying, listen, you say you have your alliances, and you have your backup forces here, okay? But really, what do you have? Look at verse 21. And now behold, thou trusteth upon the staff of this bruised reed, okay? And that reference even upon Egypt. In Egypt, they had these reeds that were they looked very substantial. They were tall and they looked very firm and so forth. But when you lean on them, they fold very quickly. You can't build anything on them. You can't use them to support anything. And he's saying that your support is pointless. Now, what's happening in 17 and 22 is this appearance of this great procession of prestigious. It would be something like, you might imagine, General Cornwallis, whatever, coming in, or one of the English main military men coming in with all the red coats and all of the paraphernalia, coming to one of the ragged groups of men that were fighting them in the Revolutionary War. It's that kind of difference. It could be quite intimidating, okay? And so that's what's happening here, okay? Then, in verses 23 to 32, you have clear intimidation coming on. So you have this appearance that's trying to oppose, and remember they would do that, okay? They in the Old Testament, and even today they would do that. Putin was trying to do this before the war in Ukraine, trying to be so this way that they would just fold, okay? And in Bible times, it's very common for an army to put on this great show and come in great show of force. There may not be anything behind them for backup, but in such overwhelming force that the place is being attacked is going to give up out of appearance, okay? But now they start ridiculing them, okay, intimidating them, okay? And it begins in verse 23. Now therefore I pray thee, give pledge to my lord, the king of Assyria, and I will deliver thee 2,000 horsemen, if thou be able to, on thy part, to set riders on them. Now what he's saying, he begins the ridicule that goes all the way to verse 32. He says, listen, if I gave you 2,000 chariots, you didn't have enough men to even house that, okay? You couldn't even take care, you couldn't do anything with them, because you don't have anything. And all the way down, okay, he intimidates them all the way down to verse 32. And he's saying, you're intimidated, you do not have anything. And then, we'll give the last one before we land the plane here. He then ridicules in verses 32 down to verse 37. Here's the ridiculing going on. And this has to do with their God. Now listen to me. We're going to end with this, but this will be a good place to end. When we are struggling in the arena of waiting upon God, our view of God is essential. When I was in Bible college, they used to have a saying that went like this: everything rises and falls on leadership. It was, at that time, it was very popular among many circles. But the truth is, everything does not fall and rise and falls on leadership. Everything rises and falls on God. On God, okay? But I will tell you this, in your Christian life, this might be worth writing down if you like to take notes. Everything for me in my Christian life rises or falls on my immediate view of the character of God. Everything rises or falls in my Christian life in the moment on my current view of the character and the nature of God. At the intersection of every sin a Christian commits is not, I can't help myself. It is, I am not seeing God as he truly is. Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve was tricked, was deceived, where did he start with? Her view of God. And so here, at this time of the enemy attacking and wanting to move now they don't understand that they're attacking them waiting upon God. They're just trying to manipulate the situation. But look at verse 33. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered at all his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? In other words, and we're 33-0, okay? We haven't lost yet, okay? Verse 34. Where are the gods? And then he lists these different groups. Where were their gods? Look at verse 35. Who are they among all the gods of the countries that have delivered their country out of mine hand? Now, look at the next phrase. That the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand. You see, the world looks at all gods the same. But we know that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the only God there is. And so he says, your God's not going to help you. He can't. Okay. Verse 36. But the people held their peace and answered him not a word. For the king's commandment was, say, answer him nothing. You see, now what they're doing here, they are attacking them. Then verse 37, they're trying to ridicule them. Verse 37, then came Elikah, the son of Hilkiah, which was over the household, and Shebaniah, the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. They are grieving. They are ridiculed. They have been intimidated. And they have been overcome in their appearance, and they are scared. Okay? Now, in chapter 19, you have the practice of waiting. And we're going to deal with that next Wednesday night, okay? How to actually do it. But I want to encourage you, okay? Just to make sure that in your own life, you're waiting upon God, let him lead you. Don't make the rash choices. Now listen to me. They talked about it today, again, about the economy. The interest rates went up today. I think they either went up today or they're going to go up. Interest rates are going up. Have you noticed that gas is a tad more expensive than it was last year? Can anybody know that? You notice that? Okay. Food is up. Okay. Everything is up. Inflation, what is it, 12%? I don't know what it is, but it's up there. Okay. In fact, we've thought about going to a 13% tithe next week. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay. But everything is up. Now listen to me. Can I just encourage you about something? Don't get panicking. Don't do it. Don't get panicking. What are we going to do? You know what we're going to do? Stand there always. We're going to wait upon God. Do not push the panic button. Do not allow yourself to say, I got to do something, and start taking matters in your own hands and saying, I've got to do something. I was talking to somebody last night. They said, we had a concert, very nice people were singing, and I talked to one guy. I said, well, you need to come to church. I said, we've had the roof reinforced so when you came, it wouldn't fall down. And he said, oh, no. Well, I've known the guy for 100 years, so I mean, he was listening to me. And he said, well, I can't. I got to work. I got to work every day. I work 7 days a week. I bought this fancy new camper, put it out here. But I got to work I can't do anything. I got to work 7 days a week. I thought to myself, what a terrible way to live a life. You got to do it. I got to keep going. I got to keep going. No, you don't. You don't have to keep going. Not if God hasn't told you to keep going. Why do we have people that working, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day? You say, well, they've got to. Well, maybe they have to. I'm not saying there's never a time for that, but I see the cars they drive. They're not used. I see the houses they buy. They're never not economical. You see, do they have to? I'm just saying to you, do what God, don't get panicky. Don't get nervous. Don't get fretful. Do not stop waiting, because the God that took care of you when gas was an amount you felt like you could afford is the same God who can take care of you now. Okay? So God's care for you is not dependent upon the price of gas, now watch this, or the resident in the White House, or the ruling of the Supreme Court. Your hope is in the Lord. Let's not get nervous and go, the sky's not falling, because until God says it's time for Revelation 21, then the sky will fall. Let's wait upon him. Let's resist these things. And next week we'll work on trying to figure out how can I practically walk through the maze of waiting upon God.